Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel, Book Besties. If I'm a new face to you, my name is Lauren, and today I am joined by Annie Fox for Booked for a Chat.
Hi, I'm Annie. And Lauren, thanks for this opportunity. I'm delighted to talk books with you. And I understand you have read Leeta Simtar, Life on Two Planets.
I
Yeah.
have, yes. So first, I like to start by doing some icebreakers. And so I have a couple of fun questions for you. What is your go-to coffee order at a coffee shop?
Ooh, decaf mocha latte.
Ooh, that's a solid order. You didn't even have to think that long.
If it's got chocolate, I'm there.
See, I'm kind of surprised when you say that because you didn't have Lita eating a bunch of chocolate. You had her eating peppermint patties.
Mint chocolate, they do those kind of mint latte chocolate things at Christmas time. That's really good. So it's no surprise, there's a little bit of Lita in me.
I think there's a little bit of Lita in all of us. Another little fun icebreaker I have for you is, were you a reader a lot as a child? And if you were, what was like your favorite book?
Oh my God, yeah. My mom was a great reader. She taught me to read when I was 3. What was my favorite book as a child? I just love books, and there was a book called Two Boys in a Tree that I remember reading as a very young child, and yeah, who knows if it's actually what the title actually was, but yeah, the idea of printed words that can make the world around you disappear so that
Mhm.
you're somewhere else, but never having left your chair just seemed like magic to me.
Yes. And that's so beautiful because that's what authors do. They get to create magic just by typing on a keyboard and they can transport you somewhere else completely.
It's total magic. Even as a writer all these years, I don't really know how it works.
I love that. First and foremost, can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer and how did you get started?
I would say I probably got started falling in love with my own writing when my parents gave me a diary for my ninth birthday. It was part of a gift, and the idea of a book filled with blank pages that I could fill in on my own. And then I had this like mind trick that I would do, that after I'd written something, I would pretend I was opening the book and reading someone else's words, and just getting into that idea that someone else had written this and it affected me, then
Mhm.
taking the step back again and saying, oh, I was the one who did this, and maybe I could affect other people that way.
Wow, that's really cool. So what was the first book that you wrote then? Because I know you've written several.
Yeah, the first book that I wrote that was published is called People Are Like Lollipops. I wrote that was when I was an undergraduate at Cornell, and it came from a summer job that I had shelving books in a library in my hometown when I was home for the summer. The librarian was kind enough to look at this little thing that I wrote, and serendipitously, she had a visitor who was staying with her that weekend who happened to be an editor at Holiday House Publishing Company in New York. So she showed my little story with my drawings to her friend, and 3 days later, I got a call at work from New York telling me that they wanted to publish my book and could I come into the city and sign a book contract.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh,
It was
like
it
a dream
was pretty
come true.
amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was kind of that was the beginning of it, and it was fun. It seemed relatively easy to me. I loved getting the royalty checks. There was a children's program on TV at that time called Captain Kangaroo, and Captain Kangaroo actually read my book on the air, and I thought, wow, okay, I found my path in life. Yeah, I was 20.
Oh, that's so funny. You were so young.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was completely, I have to say, luck. Lots of people write and they write really good stuff. But when you have someone who can open a door for you or even point you in the right direction, and you knock on that
Mhm.
door and someone welcomes you on the other side, it just feels like this maybe is meant to be if you believe in such things, which I do.
For sure. That's awesome. So how long have you been an author then?
Well, I just turned 75. So I would say from 20, you do the math, that's 55
I
years. But
love that.
not,
Yeah, but
not,
you write for children. You write YA, and it
yeah,
doesn't seem outdated in any type of way either.
maybe that's because there's a part of me that never really got over being a teenager. And I mean that in the most affectionate way. There's a sense of discovery that we have when we're teens,
Mhm,
where, especially in the area of relationships, trying to figure out where we belong, who our people are, how do you get this person to like you the way you like them?
mhm,
How do you feel less awkward in social situations? How do you start to feel like who you are is okay without having to plaster yourself with a lot of appendages that aren't really you or masks? All that stuff. It's
yeah.
very profound. It's a profound psychological developmental stage. I studied human development in college. I have a master's degree in education. I've got the memory of what it was like and the academic background. But the other thing that maybe people would be surprised to know about me is that in 1997 I launched a teen website and became an online teen advisor by the name of
Really?
Hey Tara. So probably to date I have answered over 70,000 emails from teenagers and kids younger and young adults who are asking me mostly relationship questions. And
Very
so
qualified, yes.
yeah, I think so. So if the voice that I give to my young characters actually sounds real and not dated, as you say, it's because I listen a lot to what's going on and the way that young people express these situations to me. As someone who loves to write dialogue, I have a really good ear for it. And so I kind of take in how things are expressed and try to keep it current.
Wow, because that is one of the things. So I'll talk about this a little bit later for Leeta Simtar, but I really like how she is kind of self-confident. She knows she doesn't fit in, but she still kind of has that like, well, it hurts that I don't fit in, but especially when she's on Earth, she's just like, I am who I am. And even in her relationship with Sid, that just really comes through everything that you were talking about. It just like it permeated and it was like it could very quickly become you talking down to the teenagers in some type of way or something like that, but it's very kind and loving and it was just a beautiful book to read overall.
Thank you. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Lita's a wonderful character. I loved writing her. I loved seeing both Fure, her home planet, and Earth through her eyes.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, real quick, can I have you give our viewers a synopsis of this book?
Leeta Simtar, a life on two planets. Okay, so she's an interspecies hybrid. While there are other interspecies hybrids on Fure, she is really one of the kind. She's 6.5 feet tall, where most everybody else is around 5 feet tall. Not only does she stand out in this way, physically, emotionally, and behaviorally, she is so different. She is wildly emotional. She's unpredictable. When she feels things, she either gushes or she rages at injustice. She laughs out loud, and everybody else is pretty buttoned up. They lead with logic. They're calm, kind of zen-like, and Lita is so not that.
Yeah.
And so she has always felt like an outsider in her home planet. She's looking for home. We're all looking for home. She's looking for her people.
Yeah.
And she has an opportunity to leave the planet on kind of a scientific mission. And she decides to use the opportunity to actually try to find a place where she can be at home.
I love it. I love the idea because I think at one point you explain why she is so tall because
Yeah, I don't know if I want to. Yeah,
yeah.
we shouldn't. That's a spoiler.
No, no, no. It explains certain aspects and I loved Fure. I'm glad you told me how to pronounce it. Like I was calling it Fure. So
Yeah, you're not the only one.
just everything about it was like I could very easily see the world, the whole different planet, and then her talking about Earth through her eyes. It felt like I was seeing Earth for the first time again, which was so cool.
Yes. No, I was writing this book last spring, and I live in Northern California, which is, it's not
Mhm.
Mount Shasta, which the top part of the cover shows. But if you turn the cover upside down, you see where she came from. The contrast, it's stark. It's really devoid of green. It's devoid of water and plant life. And if you flip it
Mhm.
over, you see where she comes to. And
Yes.
in this contrast, obviously I set it up that way, but seeing Earth last spring through Lita's eyes. We had a lot of rain here. in Northern California, and there was like a super bloom of wildflowers. I'm very much a nature person. I hike a lot, take photos, and it was absolutely delightful. It's almost as if I was landing on Earth for the first time.
Yes.
Writing these passages for her and seeing it as a stranger in a strange land, but totally delighted because she's a botanist by training, and so the living world really speaks to her.
Which was so cool, and I'll get back to the questions here in a second, but there's one scene when she sees rain for the first time and she steps out and Sid is kind of like looking at her like she is bonkers. And she's just out there enjoying the rain because it's Spire doesn't have enough water, essentially. Like she talks about it in some aspect to the book. Water is precious to them. And she's just like, it's falling out of the sky here on Earth, which was so beautiful.
Yeah, maybe I don't know where you grew up. I grew up back east, and when it snowed, sometimes as a kid, you'd go out and you'd put your head up to the sky and stick your tongue out and try to catch snowflakes on your tongue. And I kind of had that image when Lita was being rained on, and how it was delightful to her that there was just a surplus of water. And even when
Yeah.
she approaches Earth, she sees blue. That's what she sees. That this is the water planet.
It was such a good read. What inspires you to write stories for young adults in particular?
Yeah, well, I think I partially answered that, really being on the receiving end of these emails, which I still get this many years later from launching this website. But the other thing is that teenage years for me were they were impactful, and there's a part of me that maybe is still trying to process that, and to the degree that I have processed it, to try and help young people today. And I do that through fictional universes and characters, hopefully that they can connect with on some level, and the characters go through a journey of some sort on during the story, and if my readers can learn along with the character to be more accepting of who they are, to have some patience and compassion or where other people are at, because you just never know, and
Yeah.
people aren't always the way they seem. In the same way
Mhm.
we don't want to be judged, give people a little space, that maybe at the end of the story, at the end of the book, my young reader will go, okay, I think I've changed a little bit through this story. And that's kind of why I do it. I mean, I'm a teacher, and so I think the best novels of any kind, but especially YA novels, are those that teach you something, even if they're not hammering you over the head with some kind of lesson. It's like, okay, I finished this book. This character stays with me a little bit in my heart, and now have some more tools to deal with life.
Yes. When you were talking about that, one character in particular came to mind when you were like, we don't know what that person is going through. And I won't say any names, but I'm sure you can take a guess. But she was rough around the edges and she was annoying at first and eventually understood, came around, et cetera, et cetera. It was just one of those moments where we, like, as a reader, you were like, no, whatever happens, it'll be okay. But it taught you that compassion. Yes.
Yeah, and I think because of Lita's, she's very direct. I mean, she
Mm.
she on some level is a scientist, and so when something confronts her, she's trying to understand it in a way. And so if you and I are thinking of the same character, and I believe we are, something Lita says, and the character is kind of she's nasty, she's dismissive, and Lita says, "Is this the way you typically behave when someone is trying to help you?" And
Oh, no, I'm
oh, you
thinking
were
of
thinking of someone else.
but then you also learn some stuff later on and you realize why, and she talks about it very briefly, but then everything's
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. People are not the way we always perceive them. And when we jump to judgment, we're often wrong. We
Yes.
certainly don't want other people to judge us so quickly on such a small amount of information. Sometimes it's the way we present ourselves in the world that is
Mhm.
off-putting, but the other part is sometimes that armor that we put up that is so off-putting, we think it protects us.
But I
Yeah.
love how that came through in the book. Okay.
Thank you. I try.
Do you outline your stories ahead of time, or are you more of a discovery writer?
The novel that I wrote prior to Leeta Simtar is called The Little Things That Kill. And I don't know if you know about it, but the subtitle is really fun. It's called A Teen Friendship Afterlife Apology Tour. because it's never too late to say you're sorry. And
Yeah.
my protagonist is a dead girl, and but her story's not over. So
Okay.
the idea that book took me 10 years to write.
Oh my.
Oh, really? So I'm kind of like, okay, there were so many like not false starts, but dead ends. Just trying to just like wing it. The story will take me where I want to go. And then having to throw out 50 pages or 100 pages that I've just spent the
Mm,
last 3 months writing in. And I swore to myself, the book's great. And like I said, it took 10 years from inception to getting it out there. It came out in February of just last year. Leeta came out in March of this year. So a difference between a 10-year writing stint and about a 10-month writing stint, I learned that you need to do a little of each. Okay. Outlining
mhm.
is really great. You need to know from the beginning where your story is going to end. Story is not the same as plot. Plot is character development and those twists and turns and all the things that make a story very rich and three-dimensional. That can be on a discovery basis. But if you don't have a roadmap, for me, if you don't have a roadmap of where this thing is going, beginning, middle, and end, then you may spend a lot of time wandering around in the desert.
I was just like thinking, and I'm like, yeah, my goodness, that's 10 years to write a book and you have to go back to the drawing board essentially. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I gotta say, in my own defense, there were other things I was doing in the middle, including writing another book
Mhm.
that came out very quickly. And that, I think that was one of the questions that you previewed for me had to do with fiction and nonfiction, the
Yes.
difference between writing it. The
Do
book
you
that
wanna talk about that one?
Sure. It
Go
seems to
ahead.
segue into this because while I was writing The Little Things That Kill, I had to park it for a while because it was driving me crazy. And then I had this opportunity to write a book called The Girls Q&A Book on Friendship, 50 Ways to Fix a Friendship Without the Drama. And this goes back to being the online advisor for young people,
Mhm.
taking email questions specifically about friendship. This is a book, this is a middle grade book, and it just came really, really fast because it's like teaching. It's like teaching when you go into a classroom and say, okay, we're going to learn now about how to resolve friendship issues without the drama so that you feel good about the choices you make as a friend. So that's really different than trying to figure out what happens at this plot point here. We've got so many different options here where my character can go, how she can respond to this situation that's happening to her. In a nonfiction situation with a friendship book, someone tells you you're having a birthday party and someone you didn't invite just comes up to you at school, say you're in 5th grade, and says, how come you didn't invite me? Well, there's not a whole lot of different things that you can say in response if you want to not
Mhm.
increase the drama.
Yep.
Okay, so that's kind of how it is. There are fewer options to giving good, healthy advice to resolve relationship challenges than there are to which way can my character go with his story right now.
So is writing nonfiction a little bit easier for you
Oh
then?
my God,
Like,
yes.
flex your muscles a little bit harder for fiction?
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the kind of nonfiction you're writing. If you're writing, history, then you're doing a whole lot of research. The stuff that I write about, I come from a knowingness place because I've been teaching these kind of friendship building skills forever. And it's not any different than me, getting up without a script in front of 500 middle schoolers and talking about self-confidence and friendship for an hour.
Mm, okay, so it's natural at this point. Okay. What does a typical writing day look like for you?
Okay.
I love the behind the scenes moments, so I
Okay.
wanna know.
Well, typically when I wake up before I even get out of bed, I'm thinking about what's going on in the next scene that I need to write. So I'm writing before I even open my eyes, literally.
Wow.
This kind of like I guess I call it mental writing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Sometimes I wish it would shut up. But more often than not, whatever I'm doing, I'm kind of writing. I'm not doing that right now, though. I should tell you.
You're good.
Often when I'm quiet, that's what's going on. If I'm in the middle of writing, if I'm in the middle of a novel like I am right now, I'm working on my third YA novel right now. So, but typically, that helps me kind of like, okay, I know where I'm going to start. I know, I have a kind of a goal. If I could get through these two scenes today, at the end of the day, I'll feel good about myself. I'll feel
Oh,
good. Like
okay.
that was a good work day. After breakfast, my husband and I usually read someone else's novel out loud while we're having breakfast. We've been doing this for decades.
Oh,
I
I
love to,
love
yeah,
that.
I love to read out loud. I'm really good with voices, and it's just fun. And it's good to read other people's fiction while I'm writing fiction. You learn a lot from other people, whether the fiction is strong or could be better. It's like, yeah, go for a hike with the dog.
Hmm.
Usually out for an hour and a half, come back, and then, okay, I've been fed, my mind is ready, I've walked, and now I'm ready to write. And I move around a lot when I write. I will, if I can set a timer for 90 minutes and not get distracted, that's a good, one chunk of my writing session day. I typically don't write more than 4 or 5 hours a day.
Okay. Is
And
there a reason for that or like,
I think, again, it gives me space away from the story to think about what I've done, changes I might want to make. It's really interesting for me, Lauren. Like sometimes just driving in the car, listening to music, listening to lyrics. I'm very tuned into words and lyrics. That might spark something in me. I'm like, wow, the way that songwriter expressed that feeling, I love that. I could use something there. So I will then dictate a note to myself on my phone while I'm driving and talk about a scene and something that I want to change, so that the next time I get back to the computer,
yeah.
I can make that change.
It's really cool that you use that example because at moments, especially in the second half of the book, that's just like when I remember it happening. There's a couple times when they are in the car listening to music and Lita is just so deeply moved. So it's cool that you used that example because that feels like another piece of Lita that came from you in a way.
Yeah, music was always really important to me. I grew up wanting to go to Broadway. I did a lot of plays, mostly musicals in school, and I
Mhm.
thought I would do that. I also play the guitar and the piano, and I love to sing. And so I thought, okay, I can write music, and if I don't get to Broadway, maybe I can be Joni Mitchell when I grow up. So music is just there's something, yeah. And in Lita's case, they don't have music on Fury. There is no music.
Exactly. There's the drums and the chanting, but
The
that's not
chanting is,
music.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also I think the idea that music evokes emotion, where in her on her home planet, emotions are just like you're trying to not suppress them. They're not an emotional species.
They don't exist.
They really don't exist. That's why they
Yeah.
don't know how to deal with her when she gets emotional. But to listen to
Besides doing the
music,
hand cupping thing.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
calm down, and whatever's going on with you, we can erase it. And here
Mhm.
you've got her kind of feeding that by listening to the music and loving it.
And people around her who understand what she is feeling as she listens to the music.
Yeah, there's a scene where she goes over a wall into a garden,
Yep.
and she hears music,
Yes.
and someone, the music is obviously affecting the person who's singing along with the recording, and she's just like, yeah, I know. Music is magic too.
It is. So it's cool how you kind of like used both of that. Honestly, I'll say it again for like the millionth time, but like it was such a joy to read because like, and I took my time with the book because I was like, I know when I get into the book and I open up the book from that first page on, I am somewhere else completely. And also, even at the hard parts of the book, it just felt like a warm hug or just really kind of like happy overall. Does that make sense? Like, the cozy genre is really popular right now, cozy books, whatnot. And this one, while it was not cozy, it had the overall mood. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me because I think what we're taking a journey along with Lita. Lita is looking for a hug,
Yes.
and she brings a very receptive attitude towards everything. So she's embracing things, hoping to get embraced back.
Yes. I love that. Okay. That's beautiful.
Your sweater matches the part of the cover.
I
Did you
know.
do
I love it.
that
I love the pink.
on purpose?
What sparked the idea for this book? Was there a particular moment or inspiration behind it? Like we were just talking about songs or any interaction. How did this book come to be?
During one of those periods where I parked the little things that kill over that 10-year period, I started writing Leeta Simtar.
Really?
2017, I started writing Leeta Simtar. The way I usually start is kind of an idea of, I knew there was this character who just didn't fit in. Well, hey, nobody fits in any of my books. Uh, the idea that she would physically straddle two worlds
Mhm.
came to me. I read an amazing book by Jennifer Boylan, and it's about the journey of this trans woman who is also an amazing writer and an English professor. And Jennifer Boylan's book is called A Life in Two Genders. And it was an amazing memoir. When I got this idea of this character straddling two worlds, I thought, how do you straddle two worlds? I'm not particularly a science fiction fan. I've never written science fiction before, but I realized this would be the most extreme thing that could be, that she really has a life on two planets. And so that idea started coming to me early. And for backstory, I was kind of imagining what kind of culture and civilization happens on Fury and why she feels different.
Okay.
Rather than plot, it was more like foundational stuff. And then I parked that. And then, I wrote the girls' friendship book, and then COVID happened. And I thought, if I don't finish The Little Things That Kill, I will never finish it. So now's the time. So I actually kind of forgot about Leeta. And then when I finished The Little Things That Kill, I thought, okay, I'm ready to write again. Maybe there's something I've already started that I could continue. And I looked at several other things because I've got a folder of story ideas. And then I
Mhm.
found the Simtar, and I went, this. And I started reading what I had written back in 2017. And we're now 7 years in the future. It's now 2024. And I thought, damn, this is good. And not only did I like it, I thought this could sustain my interest for another year.
That's important.
I think that's really important because we write stuff and then it's like, yeah, it's okay, but could I spend a year noodling around with this? I don't think so. It's not. There's not enough there. But
Or
with Pride, I felt there was.
or even like popular authors who somehow manage to publish 2 or 3 books a year.
Did that happen?
And
How?
I know, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." But you read one of them, like, because you're like, "Oh, I love this author, blah, blah, blah." My viewers will know who I'm talking about. Because like, I love her stuff, but I'm like, some of it's a big miss." And I'm like, "This was so boring to read. How did you manage to write this and stay hooked on it for so long?"
Oh, okay. I think the same thing. It is often with a series, and a series that felt like the first book was amazing.
Yeah.
And that somebody said to the author, you can cash in on this. You just keep writing this universe, these characters, just we'll publish it and people will gobble it up because they love this first book. And
Yes.
and sometimes it feels like they phoned it in. And I'm just like, I get to the middle of book 2 and I'm like, okay, answer the question unless they didn't mind being bored or it didn't bore them. But me as a reader, I'm not engaged.
Yeah, or even like there's one series I'm thinking of, and it's like 10 books long, and it was fine through 6 books, but
Hey, that's pretty good.
yeah, but then it just felt like the books kept getting bigger and bigger. They were like pushing 900 pages each time, and there was nothing to them. There's no substance. And I'm like,
Wow.
y'all are
Yeah.
really cashing in on the Kindle Unlimited pages
Yeah.
read.
And on some level, I think that's really disrespectful to readers.
And their fan base. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just feel like as a writer, I have a responsibility
Mm,
to my readers, even though I may never meet them. I don't have a fan base like that. It's just like, why am I spending all this time writing? Because I believe this is a story that merits being told, and I hope it will touch hearts and minds. Okay. So I feel like I'm putting something good and valuable out in the world. Other people will say, not so much, or other people say, I like it. But the point is, I'm delivering the best that I can
mhm.
with all good intentions of what it will do. It will entertain, but these other things that we talked about for young readers especially. And if I'm just like here tossing something that feels like I whipped it up in a weekend, then it's like there's some contract that's broken here.
The respect and the trust between reader and author. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. That was a fun little tangent for us to go down.
I thought it was good. We got some stuff off my chest.
I know. I'm like, whew, my viewers know who I'm talking about with those 2 authors, where I'm like, yeah, but still I keep reading them. Humor is woven subtly throughout Leeta Simtar in this whole entire book. Is that a natural part of your voice, or was it something you consciously had to build throughout the story?
Come on, Lauren, haven't we laughed a little?
I know that one was easy.
I'm funny, which
It
doesn't
was
mean
great.
that
Like,
anything I say is funny, but I see the world in a kind of through a lens of humor. There's a lot of funny stuff that people say, and I think the best humor comes directly from the core of a character rather than, oh, this line will be funny if she says that, but it doesn't feel organic. There were times when I would have Lita, okay, she tastes root beer or something, and she
oh,
doesn't
and
like
she hated it.
the carbonation. She says, I do not like this stingy, whatever it is. She spits it out the car window. It's just like, she's not trying to be funny, but
Yes.
it just,
Once you know who she is, it's hilarious. I'm trying to find, there's one line that she says because she loves Goodwill, like,
yes.
which just really cracks me up. Or like when she gets a sugar rush, or when she meets the dog for the first time after having a bad encounter with a dog, which really, what was that lady's name? The first lady.
Angela.
Angela. She was so kind, and like she felt like a grandmother in a way, and or like a great aunt, or just like you have that neighbor downstairs that you like look after and like you hang, and that's who Angela felt like. I feel like everybody has an Angela in
They
their
should.
life.
If they don't, they should.
Oh, and then the what do you call it? The APED? APED?
Yeah. Well, you're thinking of Aya, the voice of it.
Aya,
The
yes.
the apid is the device.
Aya
And
then.
Aya, she is, yeah, she is
She's
funny.
sassy, yes. And so she provides humor in these little moments for the reader too.
Yeah, I just found a funny line that I liked when she goes to the SETI Center, the
Yes.
Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. One of the staff there is there. He says, I'm going to read this. His name is Jay. And so Lita shakes Jay's hand vigorously. I am Leeta Simtar. Pleased to meet you. Nice to meet you too. What brought you here today? Angela's red truck.
Which is just like, if you were to receive that like line from somebody, you'd be like, okay. But like, no, literally, that is what brought her there today. And it's such a human phrase to be like, so what brought you here today? You know, like, so that was part of the joy of like just thinking about the very human things that we take for granted in a way.
Yeah, she's learning the language and
Here it
she's
is. I found it. I found,
yay.
oh my gosh, page 127.
Okay. Okay. Everyone turn to page 127 now.
Yeah. Sid says, we're going to need
I
food
got
for
it.
the road. Let's stop at the market. And Lita says, might the food for the road market be located in the vicinity of the Will Be Nice store? And Sid says, the what? Oh, my mistake. I meant to say the Will Be Good store. Will you be good or will be good? Oh, Sid laughs. You mean the Goodwill. Like that one just had me like laughing the entire time because I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I finally found it. My goodness.
Hey, you did that really well with that search too.
Oh, I was just like, we're going based off vibe.
Okay, so to answer your question, is it, the humor part of the voice? Like I said, I think the best humor is when you're not intentionally trying to be funny, and Lita is not trying to be funny any of these times. Though she does learn what humor is and to make a joke.
Yes, because she starts calling out Lucy's sarcasm.
It runs in the family, right?
Yes.
But this idea of what is truly funny, obviously that's very subjective. Some people might find things funny and that I don't find funny, I'm sure. But with Lita, there is this childlike directness, and her ignorance of the language and the way it's used in a colloquial way that makes what she says often funny. And
True. Yeah.
yeah, and in that way, it was super fun for me to write her.
Yes.
When I was writing dialogue and someone would ask her a question like, what brought you here today? The first thing that came to me with my kind of Lita filter on as I'm writing is this Angela's red truck. And then I just burst out laughing at the keyboard. I go, whoa, that's really funny. It's like an after thing.
You don't mean to do it, it just comes in because the book
It
is
just
written in
comes.
third person. And I think that also helps.
Oh, I wouldn't have
And
thought.
on Fure, in the first section of the book, you can tell Lita is so different. And like, you're already kind of guessing she's human, based off the cover, right? And so you can see that her emotional outbursts are very human. But when she gets to Earth, you see the Fure side of her and kind of the nurture versus nature because she
Yeah.
is so analytical.
Mm-hmm. I think that that difference, we are different in different situations. We feel more or less at home in different situations. Our otherness sticks out more or less in different situations. And this is why she's looking for home. She's looking for a place that she's, or a feeling that she's never had, that she is okay. Because, like a lot of us, she's always assumed there's something very wrong with her because she's never seen anybody like her or never been acknowledged for the things that make her who she is. So she's either had to suppress them or deal with the consequences of
Mm,
not being able to suppress them.
yeah, which is so sad.
I just love her, and many times as I was writing, I just wanted to give her a hug.
Yes, and I'm like, girl, you can come stay with me. Like, just come hang.
Yeah, really. I
Oh,
think.
and then how
Go
do you
ahead.
say her name? Lita's best friend on Puree. Uh,
Zerti.
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 Okay, so I was saying that one right. Okay, awesome. She was just so sweet in supporting her friends on this quest to find her biological father.
Zerti is a really good friend, and it's not always easy to be friends with someone who is so different. Zerti gets some pushback from other people, and yeah, that it's a lot about standing up for the other, whether the other is you and you're standing up for yourself, or you're supporting someone who is in a more vulnerable position than you are. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of social justice messages in this feel without it hitting you over the head. And then there are humans that she meets who are not warm and accepting, not like Angela. The antithesis of Angela, the first human she encounters on Earth, is a
Right.
scary dude who,
Terrifying.
yeah, he's terrifying, and she's really scared, and she has reason to be scared.
I also liked how maybe it was just like me reading Rick, but he was so nutty, even though he was on the right track, right? But he was just like so nutty about going about things. He made me laugh. And I'm like, for some reason, your tinfoil worked. Okay, that was weird. Or just how things turned out, or, realizing certain characters are connected in certain ways and you're just like, how on earth? And you're just kind of laughing a little bit at it because you're like, I think we all know the town Rick. Like,
Yeah. So we're talking about narrow-mindedness versus open-mindedness, and
hmm
Lita's very open. And then we're also talking about the indoctrination she's had about Earth and humans that
yes.
makes her a little bit wary. Certainly makes Zerti worried that her friend has gone to this place. I don't want to give away too much. Like I said, there's story. Interspecies hybrid girl leaves home planet to find home. That's your storyline. Then what is the plot? And what is happening on all these different levels to engage the reader page after page in the story so that
hmm
care. I mean, I think that's the ultimate contract between writer and reader is that
Absolutely.
that I care about her, and if I have done my job well, then you, my reader,
hmm
will care.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Were any of the Earth characters based on real people in your life? You don't have to share names or anything, but
I wouldn't
like
if it
general
was true.
vibe.
No, not specific people. I mean,
Really?
we all know people like Rick.
hmm
We know people like Angela. We know people like Grandma Ruth. We know people like this. And on the other, we know lots of people because humans are a complex species, and we come in all flavors. And if you leave your house, you will meet people who are surprising and endearing and off-putting and all that stuff, and we learn from that. Yeah,
And it changes based on the day, even how people
true.
can come across. Yeah.
And I think, and those people who cross our path, they change us.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
The epilogue, the
Yeah.
afterword. How did you feel about that? And for your listeners, it's a year later. It's just an update. What happens when the story ends? And I just
Yeah.
wondered, without giving away things, did you feel good finding out what happened at least a year down the road?
I always love the last chapter where we get to see like what their lives are like today. It always like feels like, okay, yes, everything ended on a happily ever after. But give me like the cherry on top. Like give me the whipped cream and the sprinkles and everything else because I want to make sure everything was okay. So like talking about Rick, yeah. I was like, "Ooh, yeah, got him good." Or with Zerty, I'm like, "That's really sweet."
Mhm.
With the Dot, I was like, girl, I think you should have apologized, but whatever. You're like, we'll get over it." Just like different things. The dog, like you can tell you're a dog lover from this
Yeah.
book. Like it's just it was like a warm hug at the end of a book that was filled with warm hugs, if
Oh,
that makes sense.
yeah,
So
that's nice.
yeah. Did that answer your question at all? Because I was just like the end, and I can like put the book down and be like very satisfied with the book.
Yeah, and I think people have asked me, and I think that was also one of your questions: is there going to be a sequel to Lita?
Is there going to be something with Zerty, like
Um, I, I I rarely say never, except if someone says, "Do you want to go skydiving or something?"
like no.
No, that is never going to happen. But there are characters there who, could spin off and we could follow them. And that was true in my other novel, The Little Things That Kill. There are
Oh,
characters you go, what happened? What happened? On the other hand, I think this epilogue, this afterword, kind of wraps things up for me as a writer, so that I'm not left wondering so
mhm.
much about what might happen. And I will say, and you haven't read the first book, but there are some characters who show up in Leeta Simtar who are in my first book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
now I want to like
some people who have read both going, oh my God.
yes, I love like when the book universes connect together. So good.
Yeah. So I've got that happening in this third novel with Sid.
Really?
Well, more specifically with his graphic novel.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I loved the story of the graphic novel and how that was like a little sub thing. Lita making a suggestion in that moment let the reader in on where she was at right then in that moment.
I think the relationship between Lita and Sid is so special. I loved being with the two of them and watching their friendship develop.
Yes. And then, yeah, no spoiler.
No spoilers.
Because it started off good. Angela like recommended him and then poof, and then it was a roller coaster, but it's like very natural to how some friendships happen even.
Yeah, it felt that way to me, that it's not like, oh, you'll be my best friend and we'll never disagree about anything. And we will understand each other instantly. We will always communicate on the same level so that we get each other. And
And that's not realistic. I
it
know.
isn't, but you can work through it, when you get to those bumps. You
Yes.
and that's another part of the messaging, I guess. It's like, don't be freaked out if your bestie is suddenly not talking to you. If you invested in the relationship, then there are ways to make it right again and learn from what happened.
Exactly.
I wanted to also say something about the audio book for Lita Simtar,
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
because we have a wonderful audiobook narrator. Her name is Maria Marquis. She's a world-class actor, and this is a performance that she gives. You listen to this. I wrote every word in there. And for
Yeah.
me to listen to an audiobook and laugh and cry as if I'm listening to it for the first time, I go, okay, someone is giving me an amazing performance here. Someone.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I I didn't realize there was an audiobook to go with it. Because I totally would have done like the immersive reading.
do you want me to send you an audiobook promo code?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I will go back and reread it. I want to re-experience it with the audiobook. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would do that. It's a total treat. She's
Okay, so this
amazing.
is one that you definitely should do an immersive read on. Oh my gosh. I will link that in the description of the video and everything so that people know that there's an audiobook as well. That is so dope.
Yeah, there's an audiobook from my first novel too. I love audiobooks,
Yeah.
and yeah, there are people who do that immersive read. I typically listen to audiobooks when I'm driving.
Mm,
Um, so I'm not reading at the same time. That would be dangerous. But I have heard about people just, and this is kind of a new kind of information for me, that people do these immersive reads, and I was like, whoa, that That is very cool.
It's so fun because, like, I do it a lot for I have a certain, mystery series that I do it for,
Mhm.
and I enjoy that because she has, like, a British accent, 1800s, like, very specific. So, I like certain immersive reads. Other times, I read while I am quilting, so I'm
Mhm.
an old lady, or while I'm cleaning to, like, motivate me to actually, like, clean my
Yeah,
apartment.
I hear you. Uh-huh.
So but on some of them, I'm like, "No, I want to sit down and devote time to this book and, like, fully be there." So, this is definitely one that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you could vibe away to it on audio."
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, there are lots of characters from, really from a 2-year-old
Yes.
to to grandpas and grandmas and people in between, different genders, and she does it all, and she does it so fluidly that you could easily picture different actors there, but it's just Maria. It,
That's amazing. Oh my
I think
gosh.
I think it's pretty amazing. Very lucky to find her.
That is so cool.
Okay, I'll get that for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Lita remains optimistic without being naive. Was it challenging to strike that balance in her character?
Well, sometimes she's not so optimistic. Sometimes she falls into like, are we ever going to get there? Am I, is he still there? Will I find him? She spins out sometimes, but I think her general MO is optimism. Her naivete is it depends on how you define naive. She's
She's
naive
kinda
as
naive to, like, Earth, but I think she is very intelligent overall, and maybe
right.
optimistic wasn't the correct word.
Hmm.
She overall had a very I don't know how to say it correctly, like, upbeat vibe, and yes, she did get into, like, the annoyance or she was frustrated, but overall, she was, like, just really chill
Hmm.
and, like, here. I
Yeah.
don't think
So
it's, like, optimistic, but, like, you know what I what's that word?
she's a positive person. And I think no, optimism's not a misnomer. I think that she is more, if the opposite of optimistic is cynical, she is definitely positive,
Yes.
rather than cynical. She takes things as opportunities to explore, and so she's open rather than cautious, and I think
Yes,
that
'cause
makes
even when
her.
she learns truth that somebody has, like, kept hidden from her entire life, she doesn't just go into this deep pit of despair. She goes, "Great, now we have a new mission."
Well,
Like
first she says, "What? How come no one
yeah.
told me this before?" And then she's like, "Okay." She rolls up her sleeves and says, "Okay, now
Yeah.
it's like a new a signpost is lit up, and now she's saying, 'Okay, I'm going to follow this.'"
Yes.
So what I love about her is that she rarely gets discouraged. She
Maybe
is,
that's the one I'm looking for.
yeah,
That might be it. Yeah.
she continues to move forward. She's persistent and she is confident. There is that. She is definitely confident. And do you think about who she's tracking this whole time
Yeah.
and how that person has kind of given up and has shrunk into themselves and has barricaded themselves out of the world. She is knocking on doors, literally. She is literally knocking on doors and trying to find what she's looking for. And when it doesn't turn out necessarily the way, things don't always turn out that way. Even, arriving on Earth isn't exactly the way she expected. She doesn't give up. She's like, okay, there's something here for me. I only have a few days, which was another one of your questions about the
Yeah.
time limit.
Time. Because
Um,
I thought that was really smart to use that as a device to keep the story progressing
yeah.
and not make it feel dead at any point.
Right. Thank you. That's important. We call that the ticking clock. The ticking clock is like, and you remind the reader. You need to remind the reader, or by having the character remind herself, or in this case, Zerdy saying, "Hey,
There's
hey,
so many
you got to get
things.
moving here."
Yeah.
Right. So it keeps the story on track. It keeps the writing on track. You don't have forever to be looking at the butterflies or the water skimmers or the ducks. You have to, if you stop, there's a reason to stop, but you always have to know that, why am I here? And I only have a few days. I got to get moving again.
But I
Get moving.
also thought it was beautiful that, like, when they are camping, she does stare, or it's her first time being on the planet. And I personally would have been like, let's go, let's get this done. And she's just like vibing in the meadow, just hanging out, just experiencing it and not being like, and then at a certain point, she's like, okay, now it's time to get down to business. She allows herself that freedom as well.
Well, I think there's a part of her, maybe it's the scientist in her. She's an explorer. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for her to be in this place. And it's so gorgeous. She's just like overwhelmed. The animal life and the stars, seeing the stars for the first time totally blows her mind.
Or trying
And
candy.
the water flowing, and things growing and things fluttering, and it's in that way there's a childlike innocence to her, so she can get distracted in the moment, but
Yeah.
not for too long. So there's like, this duality here. It's like, oh my god, look at this sunset, this is gorgeous. And then like, oh, okay, I need to get going.
Reading it as an adult, I kind of take it as like a reminder. You can take that minute to breathe and just be present and look at the flowers or look at the sunset and like recognize them in a way and not have to rush, rush, rush. Like, it's
I,
okay to take that moment for
not
yourself.
only is it okay, it's beneficial.
And it's human. It's very human to want to have that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My kids were always, they would affectionately joke about me that I'm always saying, wow, look at that. Did you see that? And it's usually, a bird or that tree, or it's like, I mean, I know they love me, and they probably think it's very endearing, but that is part of who I am. Is like,
Yeah.
I'm still vibing on the natural world, which is, I think, pretty okay. It's always
Yeah,
changing, right? Something to see. It's never the same.
exactly. And there's always something new to learn about it too. That's what I like. So,
And to learn about yourself. And what you just said is profound, Lauren, when you said, just to take that moment and breathe, because
mhm,
whatever you were rushing to on the other side of that breath is going to still be there.
mhm.
But you're in a better place to address it if you take that moment to breathe. It's just kind of like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes so much sense. Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like this book was kind of that reset.
Yeah, I think it was. It
Okay.
was for me.
So for the last question, what is next for you? Are you currently working on any other projects that you can share with us at this
Sure.
time?
Actually, in the back of Leeta Simtar, I think it actually announces my next book.
Let's see.
It's on page 297. Annie's next book.
Yes, Page Turner and the Happily Ever After Wars. Do you want to tell us about that?
My protagonist is an aspiring romance novelist. She's 18. She just graduated from high school. Um, and the question I'm posing is, what happens when the character you create and the story that you're trying to tell is not necessarily in line with what the character wants her story to be? What
Mm,
happens when a character wrests control from the writer and refuses to give it back?
that'll be
So,
so fun. Because her
uh,
name's Page Turner, even.
Paige Turner, that's her name, Paige Turner. So yeah, I'm playing around with the reality, the story reality versus the writer's reality, and how they intersect. And really, you never get any pushback. You're kind of the one in control of your characters, or are you?
That'll be so fun. I'm looking forward to that one. And that one comes out in 2027,
Yes,
correct?
I've given myself more than 10 months for this one,
You're
so
like,
I have
"Phew."
more time to hike and smell the flowers.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm excited for that one.
Thank you.
Where can our viewers find you?
The easiest place, if you could just remember Annie Fox and go to anniefox.com,
Mhm.
you'll find out everything about me.
Good. And I will link to all of your socials, all your website, everything like that down in the description of this video. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. And Annie Fox, thank you so much for joining me here on Booked for a Chat. It has been wonderful today. So thank you. If you guys enjoyed watching this video, consider giving it a like And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next Friday. Bye, book besties.